Welcome to the Cyber Tech Podcast, inside the minds of everyday IT and cyber pros, powered by AspireByte, hosted by Mike Fierros. Real life stories, real careers, real world experience. Each episode brings you honest conversations with people working across the tech field, from cybersecurity and information security to IT, sharing lessons learned, challenges faced, and what it truly takes to build and sustain a career in tech. Let's get into it.
Hey, what's up, guys? How's it going? Mike again, Cyber Tech Podcast, inside the minds of everyday IT and cyber pros. Welcome to episode number 35. But before we get into episode 35, if this is your first time listening to the Cyber Tech Podcast, be sure to subscribe to the AspireByte YouTube channel, where we share full podcast episodes, clips, and tech-focused content. And while you're there, like and share the videos to help spread the word. You can also listen to every episode of the Cyber Tech Podcast on Spotify. If you've been enjoying the show, give us a 5-star rating, drop a quick comment, and share it with others. It helps us reach more people and keeps the mission going. Thank you for everyone who's already done that. Want to explore more? Visit the AspireByte Hub at aspirebyte.carrd.co. It's your all-in-one starting point for free resources, podcast links, merch, and more. Speaking of merch, check out the AspireByte merch shop at aspirebyte.myspreadshop.com to wrap the mission wherever you go. Let's get into episode number 35, guys. This is going to be an awesome episode. It's going to be a really special one here. The person I'll be interviewing is from my hometown of Yuma, Arizona as well. He is a student that just graduated not too long ago, only for high school, but from a university as well. So he has his bachelor's degree in cybersecurity. He went through some cyber boot camps we have locally here in Arizona, where I'm currently at. Went through AZ Cyber Initiative, went to the boot camp. That's where I met him the first time right there. He reached out to me about a couple years or so on LinkedIn, kind of wanted to get more information about, how to get into IT and cybersecurity. And from then on, I kind of kept in touch and gave him my perspective on things and kind of guided him in a little bit. And now he worked at Crane School District in Yuma, Arizona. This is Adrian Franco. He's a computer specialist too at Crane School District. How's it going, Adrian?
Good. Thank you so much for having me on. This is really exciting. And yeah.
I appreciate it, Adrian. Like you, like I think I mentioned to you before, right, on our LinkedIn chats. Like when I was your age, I was DJing at your age, but like I wasn't thinking like, hey, let me do this so I could get into this industry. I wasn't thinking long term like you are, right? And so I had a different perspective on things. And what I really appreciate about you, Adrian, because when you hit me up on LinkedIn, I love kind of like giving the true perspective on the local job market, nationally, remote stuff, and you're just asking me really good questions and stuff, and you did all the right things, and you're doing all the right things, and I think students that listen to this podcast, in particular, also for tech teachers that listen to this podcast, you're a very good example of someone that does the work, grinds. Like I could tell you love doing the tickets. You love helping out people, and I could tell by your work ethic, especially. I could see that on LinkedIn too.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I definitely, when I messaged you, I remember it's a good thing. There's a lot of information out there, but at the same time, it could be very, I guess, procrastination. I forget what the saying is, but there's a lot to do and a lot, you have to stay, I guess, focused, and it's and that's why it's so valuable to have resources like your podcast, so you could get that insight, because it's different from knowing like a theory and then knowledge. You know what I mean? So
True.
it's very
so
essential.
Tell us a little bit about yourself for those people that don't know your background. How was it growing up in Yuma, Arizona, trying to get into tech?
Yeah, so for me, growing up in Yuma, Arizona, first, I know I did see in some other podcasts as well. I wish that here in Kofa, at least in Kofa, I wish I had like a tech class. Supposedly there is one I heard about, and in my mind I was like, what? Like I didn't have that. But regardless, here was very traditional, like doing you could do law enforcement, you could do just more so, I guess, hands-on things. But technical, where that came from, and that background or origin of it was just from playing video games, and ultimately me wanting eventually to get my own computer. So because I couldn't really afford one, so I bought it part by part. So
Nice.
that, I think, is where it really opened up everything. Where I built my
Nice.
first computer, I looked into it. not like so to say studied, but like I did watch,
Mm.
YouTube videos and they're entertainment, but at the same time I did learn so much. And I ran into a bunch of problems on the way, but eventually, I built it the first time, it turned on, and yeah, that's sparked it from there.
When it sparked your curiosity just building that computer, Windows
Mhm,
PC, Adrian, when were you thinking like, "Hey, maybe I could do this as a career, or maybe this is
mhm.
something I could look and maybe get a job in tech or IT or cybersecurity?" When did you start thinking about that?
Yeah, and the funny thing is I didn't even understand what IT was back then, like, I really didn't.
Mm,
I thought IT was more so, like, kinda like and there's definitely nothing, wrong with, like, Geek Squad, but
yeah.
I thought it was, like, IT meant TV, peripherals, like, TV, this,
Yeah.
that, the other. I thought that's what IT meant, meaning, like, you go place to place, they install a TV for you, you go place to place, maybe you might get
Oh,
someone 'cause, not everyone has
yeah.
computers, so
That's true.
or wants
That's
to
true.
build them, so that's what I thought it was. I didn't think it was end user, you know what I mean? Like, helping
Mhm,
people,
yeah.
like, in an organization, because ultimately, that the operational there's, it without technology nowadays, I guess it's very vital and very important
True.
to have, the operation to keep going.
There's those positions that you're in where it's like you work IT, but can you work on the audio board too while
Yeah.
we have this presentation? And so sometimes, in IT we have to roll with the punches. Like, well, we don't do this, but hey, there's
Mhm.
no one else that could support it. It's
Right.
a part of technology, so we'll do it, right? So I think it's really important to for those that are listening that don't know what IT is yet. IT, information technology is dealing everything with computers and networking and technology and stuff. Sometimes it's even a little more than that, but
Mhm.
because then people need IT help and whatnot. So we're there for the
Mhm.
users, and any way we can help out, we can help out. What was it like, Adrian, to get your first IT role? Because I know you went
Mhm.
through some training with AZ Cyber Initiative. You also worked at another nonprofit, Elevate Southwest, in
Mhm.
Yuma, Arizona. But what was it like as far as like finding those jobs, applying for it, getting the interviews? How did you prepare yourself for it? And what was
Mhm.
the feeling getting that first IT job?
Yeah, man, it was very, very, rewarding and very, very, I guess, relieving 'cause,
Mm,
yeah, I definitely, I put a lot of work into it, and, for me, I'm very, like, kinda like OCD, so, like,
yeah,
I wanna make sure. I mean, ultimately, the important thing for those of you out there that are looking for a job, you're not gonna know everything, and I know you've probably heard it a lot of times, and we all know it, but at the end of the day, yeah, we don't know everything, so, you don't need to check every single box, as long as you have that work ethic, and as far as what I can see, or this is my assumption, I mean, I'm not the one
mhm,
hiring people,
yeah,
but character goes a long way, and I think that's really important. It's something,
mm,
to, remind yourself for sure.
mm,
As far as looking for jobs, it was a bit difficult at first. It was definitely difficult, and
mm, mm,
trying to find, even at maybe it's different now, but at the time, there wasn't many available, like, IT or entry level. Um, it was very, like, I guess, shot in the dark, trying to, like, should I
mm,
do remote? Should I not do remote? So, ultimately, I'd say, preparing yourself, as in, like, doing projects or keeping yourself busy while applying, it will never hurt. It'll never hurt, and, ultimately keeping an open mind, and I think
mm.
as long as you know what you want and you know that, you're gonna be a good support to someone, however your resume looks, if you can actually apply that, you can't go wrong.
When you reached out to me on LinkedIn, my first thing is like anybody that whoever reaches out to me, I want to be as transparent as possible because I don't my and I mentioned this in podcast lots of times. You probably heard it too, on Adrian, on this podcast and maybe other similar podcasts. But like it's a bad taste in your mouth when you see like these YouTube videos where they'll say,
Mm,
hey, pay $6,000 for a whole week of cybersecurity boot camp and make $100 million, the
mhm,
next after the 6 months, and it's such a
mhm,
disservice for those that like yourself, Adrian Lee. You did the work, you grind, you studied, you did home labs as well. You
mhm,
looked out for local businesses as well. I can see from your LinkedIn, and that recipe right there. It when someone else says, "Well, try this," but they just want Not saying that it doesn't work. Maybe it does work, but I've yet to find a professional or someone that's been in the field for more than 30 years that's gone through boot camp and making that.
Mhm.
It's just such a disservice. And I think
Yeah.
you're a very good example of someone, and especially your age, right? You like I tell myself, man, Adrian has an old soul, meaning you're old school in a sense where you're willing to put in the work because not a lot of people.
Mhm.
I remember I didn't put in the work for it. I mean, what I mean,
Yeah.
like very focused and want to get things done and help people at the same time while going on this journey. And such a prime example to for those that are listening that are students right now. Adrian showed his journey on LinkedIn, right? Like you showed
Mhm.
you helped the local business find a fake website. I think that's pivotal. I think showing your journey on there, that's
Mhm.
just the way it is in this market. It's where painting a picture of who you are professionally on LinkedIn, maybe even other social media platforms,
Mhm.
seeing how you can help other people, showing your
Yeah.
skill set, because employers, that's where they're going, is LinkedIn, social media. Who
Mhm.
is Adrian? What does he do? And when they
Yeah.
see stuff, when I saw you find, for those that don't follow Adrian, but he, forgive me if I'm wrong, Adrian, you helped a local business here in you particularly Yuma, Arizona, with a
Mhm.
fake website, and you were able to confirm it was fake indeed. It was a spoof
Mhm.
website, and you contact the business owner. That right there is just it encouraged me. I'm like, oh wow,
Yeah.
Adrian really did your work, and you displayed it on social media, and not only that encouraged those folks, or the still students as well, but
Mhm.
also me too. I saw that. I was like, hey, I was like,
Yeah.
I was not, like I said, I was not thinking about that when I was your age, Adrian. And
Uh-huh.
that's such encouragement for me as well.
To add on to that, it's really it's also important, to stay actively learning, stay curious,
Yeah,
That's really important too, because that'll go a long way, I would
yeah,
say, and as far as yeah, like there's a lot of stuff, and don't get me wrong, I definitely went down a path too where, okay, yeah, I see this person on YouTube, he said do this, do that, okay, boom, I'm gonna do
yeah,
exactly this, do exactly that. And I mean, thankfully I got distracted with other things, so I didn't get to
yeah,
fully, full on do that. But
yeah.
yeah, honestly, anything you learn is beneficial, even because
True.
even till now I'm still on the mix of like, like it's very superstitious, like, oh, like if I learn this right now, like I'll forget this, and if I on
Yeah.
anything will help. Like now,
True.
now like that I have a role in IT,
Mm,
anything will help, and it's one of those things where even similarly, when it comes to applicable skill in IT, just to make an
mm,
example, you won't know the issue until you run into it. So you're not gonna know everything until you run into it is when you'll have it. So if you feel discouraged because someone has X, Y, and Z experience, or knows how to do this really quick or something, they ran into that issue, and that's what made them curious, and that is what sprouted that seed for them to, hey, I want to do a project on this because this, or
mm.
because I know I did do
Cool.
a virtual. It's called a virtual internship through, I don't know why I'm blanking on the name, but it was a virtual internship. They did one with, I think they did one with MasterCard, and basically
Oh, nice.
you do a task, you do like a task, and there's a scenario behind it. There's like as to why it's important, and this is the scenario, this is the details, and it's almost like a capstone project kind of, but
Oh, okay.
they give
Nice.
you a cool certificate. Oh, it's through Forage.
That's
That's
cool.
what it was called,
Okay. Okay.
and
Nice.
inspired me to make a project through it, and it
Nice.
was it was about, I'm forgive me if I'm wrong, it could be Mastercard or I think it was AWG or AIG, but,
Okay.
nonetheless, the scenario was about the Log4j vulnerability.
Mm.
And doing that scenario, I wanted to continue that and kind of, show, I guess, employers, hey, I'm
Yeah.
still active, still learning. So I did a Wireshark project on a Log4j just
Nice.
to show myself, like, what would that look like in an environment? What would that look like in this aspect?
True.
So that was very cool. So yes, staying curious is very helpful.
That's something that employers are looking for. Like the previous folks that have been in this podcast, those are CISOs, those are managers, directors. They're looking exactly for that. Adrian is home lab skills, stuff you do on the side. exactly
Mhm.
where scenarios and your hack a box and try hack me type stuff. That's where it's going to showcase your skill set, and that's something that even folks that listen to this podcast are been in the fields for years.
Mhm.
That's something we still need to do, because we could be, being in this field a little long, you could become complacent at things. And so I
Mhm.
think I think it's a breath of fresh air when you see someone like yourself, Adrian, to do these home labs and these and showcasing the saying, hey, I'm doing this right here and you can too. And that's for me, like I said, when you found that spoof website from the
Mhm.
company, it definitely encouraged me, man. Like, it encouraged me
Mhm.
a lot.
Yeah,
And to know that, hey, stay on your toes, don't become complacent. Obviously
definitely.
you want to have family time, friendship time and stuff like that. But
Oh, yeah.
when you want to develop your craft and keep honing the craft, like you mentioned, Adrian, you have to keep learning and you just don't stop.
Yeah, and to add on to the spoofed website, I mean, it was under my nose and I didn't even know it 'cause I go
Nice.
there. I live nearby that Raspado place,
Oh, okay. Nice.
and that's when I was able to ask them like, "Hey, like, was this your website?" 'Cause, like, I was this close to, like, ordering from it, and they're like, "No, that's
Oh,
not our website." So I, like, that made me more curious to look deeper into it and see, where did it
nice.
where who owns the domain and things like that. Um, so, yeah, it's, just 'cause we're in Yuma,
Yeah.
there's still that is still very prominent out here.
What would you say to students right now who feel intimidated by technology?
For me, I think there's no harm in throwing yourself out there. So I would
Mm,
say just look for anything that is, entertaining, try to it's hard to get that balance right away, but, like, to make yourself suffer when it comes to, like, like, the mundane, boring, very it's important, but it's boring, things to learn, and then also, like, that exciting, like, "Hey, like, there's a there's many YouTubers out there, like, um, exploring the new Microsoft vulnerability or, exploit or
oh yeah,
whatever," and it's like, "Oh, it's cool," that, but also looking at the other stuff. So I'd say just, so you hear a lot of things, a lot of jargon, a lot of, it's not very digestible, but don't be afraid because eventually the more you view it, the more you'll know. And, same thing with sports, just like anything, there'll be a lot of jargon, a lot of like, what? How does that work? But once, with time, the more you do and the more you learn, back to the earlier point, the more you do, the more you learn,
true.
it's the more, I guess, it can only do you good. It can't do you any harm. But for sure, I would also say, because I'm very introverted, like, I'm
Mm,
very introverted, and putting yourself out there and being transparent, anyone can relate to it, whether it's on LinkedIn or YouTube, however. It's also very important because that's how I got my internship, just by networking, and I always heard, "Oh,
nice.
like, networking, that's the best," and I'm like, "I don't know anyone." Like, I don't know anyone. So,
Yeah,
eventually, doing the AZ Cyber Initiative, I kind of
yeah,
put myself out there and, thank God it actually sprouted into something, but definitely putting yourself out of your comfort zone, that's the only way to learn really is,
yeah.
you don't know back to the thing, you don't know until you do it, so
Those best mentors and tutors and teachers, and maybe we have family members or friends that'll push us. Right, those are the ones that kind of sharpen us, or even tell, very 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 transparent. Like, hey, Mike, you're not good at this, but maybe you could try a little bit better at this. Or Adrian, you're good at this, but help Mike with this, stuff like that. Like, someone that's going to be very transparent. And I totally understand that, even a lot of folks that listen to this podcast, and a lot of us in tech, IT, cyber, and infosec, maybe developers doing AI stuff, but like, we could be introvert, right? Because
Mhm,
we love technology so much and we love helping people so much that sometimes we want to get stuff done. We're
mhm,
grinding on the tickets and stuff like that. But that's a perfect example, Adrian, like yourself, where at your age you're able to showcase, showcase the work on LinkedIn.
mhm,
Reach out to me. You didn't know who I was. Like, who is Mike? Mike's been here. And that takes of that speaks a lot, and that's
mhm,
a very good example because you don't, unless you ask somebody, the worst they could say is no, or I don't have time. But I think I always try to reach out, whoever reaches out to me, like you did yourself, because I I've been when I was younger, trying to get, break into DJing, wherever it may be, it was hard to find people unless they're family or friends. And I think
Right.
it's really important to, like yourself, Adrian. Like I'm sure you get folks, messaging you and stuff like, "Hey, Adrian, how do you get in IT? Can you vouch for me or stuff like that?"
Mhm.
Helping the next person out. You want to pay it forward, if you will, right?
Oh
So like
yeah.
someone did that for me, you want to do it for them. That's something we'll go into. When it comes to not just networking, but like when it comes to like mentorship and
Mhm.
maybe there was a teacher that influenced you, Adrian, or
Mhm.
maybe it was your family, your parents. How important is that to have that support system and kind of those levers where you could pull where it's like,
Mhm.
hey, let me reach out to Mike on LinkedIn, or let me reach out to my friend at another
Mm.
high school, or maybe a teacher that I haven't talked to. Let me ask their opinion on something or
Mhm.
get a reference. How important is to have that kind of networking connection with someone like that?
Yeah, I think it's super, super important. Another really helpful and very, generous person was Luis Garcia,
Oh yeah,
which
shout out to
was
Luis,
yeah,
episode
shout
number
out
one.
Luis. Yeah, he's the GOAT. But
Yeah,
yeah, he was very, very willing to help, very willing to pay it forward and just, not, it's very refreshing when you ask someone a question and they're open to that question. They're
yeah,
not closed, they're not snarky or whatever it may be. But it's super important and it's encouraging too, because one,
yeah.
you know um even in work you need to collaborate with others, so
True,
being able to bounce that off, it's you got to know how to, I guess, put yourself out there, to just ask them, like, say, like, hey, like, because obviously you don't want to be prideful, you don't want to act like, oh, I need to do this on my own, and definitely don't
true.
want to do that. So it's very
Yeah,
important and it's very uh, you know, um, what's the word? Essential, because it helped me,
mhm,
like, hey, should I do this? This is where I'm at right now. This is my resume. Do you know
mhm.
someone that knows, like, because you won't, and that's another tip too for the looking for a job, asking for someone's opinion, or you can even start a
Yeah,
conversation with, "Hey, this is my resume. Do you have any tips?" Because you're in a role, etc.
mhm.
Because that's a different insight. You're not gonna you're they're not gonna give you a critical breakdown when you get and unfortunately we didn't select you as a candidate, email response.
Yeah, true.
So having that from someone is, it speaks volumes. It's really helpful.
And then be part of the the tech community like we have one here in Yuma,
Hmm.
Arizona. To have a community like that, and also just in LinkedIn in general, even social media, reaching out to folks that we see on YouTube,
Hmm.
folks that may be working for Palo Alto or for Black Hills Information Security, whatever it may be, right? Like these folks are, a lot of times they're willing to, if you ask them a question, they're going to respond back, and I appreciate that too. It's we can't do this, especially particularly in tech, we can't do this alone, and it
Hmm.
requires networking, whether going to a conference or maybe locally in your city where you're at, your high school, your college, and or
Yep.
finding folks on who works IT in San Diego, or who works IT in Phoenix or Yuma, or New
Mhm.
York City, wherever it may be, and reaching out to folks. Might like you might not, like when you got hold of myself, Adrian, or
Mhm.
even Luis, you didn't really, you saw we work in IT, but like it takes, like you mentioned, Adrian, it takes that stepping out, if you will, like
Mhm.
put yourself out there, like, hey, Luis, my name is such and such. Or Mike, I'm
Mhm.
trying to get into IT. What kind of tips? Looks like you work IT from your
Mhm.
LinkedIn for a while. What can you give me some
Mhm.
tips? And we got to remember, for those that listen to this podcast are in the profession, let's try to take a time, if someone message us, even if it's just like a quick, hey, my name's,
Mhm.
Max, can, you work for Palo Alto, can you help, what suggestion you have for crew move? Taking
Mhm.
those 10 minutes is going to help. It's going to help them. And then they're going to
Mhm.
remember that. And they're going to remember, like, hey, Adrian helped me, Mike helped me, Luis helped me, guiding me. Let me help this gentleman or this person that messaged me on LinkedIn or my social media, and kind of give them tips, or these, and also based on my experience that I'm going through
Mhm.
and my tech journey and stuff like that. And it's such a weight in gold, if you will, to have
Oh,
that
yeah.
for sure. What does it mean to you to help show younger students that careers in IT and cybersecurity are possible?
It means a lot because, coming from, someone that was in, a position of, like, it's a big hill to climb, it's it's very inspirational, like the things that you do, the things that
Mhm.
Luis does, and everyone that works, in IT. day in day out they're putting their minds to their craft, and to me it's super important, and I hope eventually with more knowledge. I wouldn't say wisdom yet because I'm, but
It'll come.
with it'll come hopefully. So yeah, I hope I could drop some nuggets the same way I've heard from you and other people on the podcast as well, because it's again it's very different from it's very it touches home because it's locally, and as well it's not like your typical video where you see do this do that, get view in my
Yeah.
link in my description, and right here is where you can this and that and the other, you know what I mean? And
Yeah, true.
it's
Mhm.
it's very I guess it's a more genuine resource, so for us to be that resource is very important.
And Adrian, I saw on your LinkedIn that you mentioned you want to become a stock analyst. What attracts you to that role?
Right now I'm kind of like an open book and
Yeah.
just like a sponge, I guess. Like I love I love networking. I played around with
Nice.
Cisco Packet Tracer. I love that. I played
Oh yeah.
around with TryHackMe. I'm like, whoa, I love this. I'm very, in the honeymoon type of,
Yeah.
um, so currently I still want to either be a SOC analyst or I guess
Nice.
maybe incident response, or the forensics is
Mm.
really cool too.
Yeah.
um it's I yeah, I like everything, but
Yeah.
for sure it's definitely important to to narrow it down and um go with the flow. Another thing that does interest me, um, and where I'm at right now is, I'm learning some Microsoft stuff, some tools, how to
Nice.
use their Microsoft Defender, how to use Purview, like what capabilities there is there. And just overall, doing try hack me, getting it's very like same thing with the saying for Security Plus. It's a mile wide, what is it, 1 inch deep? I don't even know, but
Oh yeah, I
uh,
know what you're talking
yeah,
about.
it's very broad. It's very, very,
Yeah.
very, very broad. But ultimately, if you like back to the curious thing, you're gonna
Mhm.
go into your rabbit holes about this, about that, and when you have the knowledge or the theory behind it, it's very refreshing to do the
Yeah.
hands-on, and vice versa. That's another thing I would recommend other people.
Mm.
Don't don't feel ultimately, it's I would say up to your preference, but don't feel too, I need to do theory first before I do hands-on first. Like they're both extremely important and they come hand to
Yeah.
hand. And another thing back to what I was gonna say, another thing that interests me is like some red teaming. I just to look for that, to hunt for that threat. You have to
Yeah.
kind of see what they're doing and recognize, okay, that right there suspicion or whatever it may be. Like, I mean, that and I guess because I've been watching Mr. Robot, so I don't know. So,
Oh,
uh,
nice.
so it's but definitely that's where I'm at.
That's cool, and I think it's important, especially for those students that try to get into IT, like yourself, like you did yourself,
Mhm,
Adrian. Even career changers that want to pivot in one industry to another. I think it's a good way because it's I remember going into IT particularly, and I wanted to do networking, and
mhm,
I like hardware, computer hardware instead. So I was a computer technician,
mhm,
but like we love everything in IT. There's so much to learn, and it's such a huge wealth of knowledge to consume. And just like yourself, Adrian, I find myself, hey, I like cyber, I like infosec, and
mhm,
pivoting into like a GRC type role.
mhm,
It's learning and see where you fit at, and then
mhm.
pivoting into that and focusing on
Oh
that.
yeah.
And but the good thing, like I remember you mentioned, you messaged me.
Mhm.
I'll paraphrase a little bit to be quick, but like
Uh-huh.
you mentioned to me about should I get into cyber? Should I get a straight cybersecurity job? And I mentioned about
Mhm,
being on help desk or like a service desk type role, because I think
mhm,
all of us, in whether they're still in IT, cyber, infosec,
mhm,
developer, I think we've all started in the help desk role, and that those help desk, service desk roles, or computer technicians, computer specialist roles,
mhm,
you touch so much technology that when you do have that specific role already, like a SOC analyst or incident response, lead, or GRC specialist, or maybe a CISO,
mhm.
Adrian Franco, you'll remember, you'll remember those days where like, man, I remember I told Mike or I told Luis, hey, I want to do this, and now I touch the technologies, and when you come across the technology you used to touch, you can remember those times where like, hey, I remember
Mhm.
messing with the Cisco network router. Maybe this is
Mhm.
where the attacker is coming from. So those technologies you're touching right now, even for those that want trying to pivot,
Mhm.
trying to get into IT, those roles are gold nuggets. I always tell people because yes, you're help desk in a way, but you're also hands on
Mhm.
and you're talking to users. You're building that relationship with your
Mhm.
supervisor, your coworkers, the IT
Mhm.
team, the cyber team. Teacher. If it's school
Yeah.
district like yourself, Adrian, teachers and stuff, and building that rapport, and they'll remember. Users remember,
Mhm.
like, man, I remember Adrian. He used to
Mhm.
work here. Now he's CISO.
Yeah.
And man, I wish he was still here because he would always fix my computers on time. So you'll leave that impression to people, right? Like even
Mhm.
years after, and like, man, I
Oh,
remember
yeah.
Adrian was really good, or Mike was really good at this, and so
Uh-huh.
I think that's a really good thing for sure.
Yeah, and to briefly add on to that, if I were to do this all over again, I
Mhm.
think, I thank God where I'm at now, but for sure, if I were to do all over again, I would, go pedal to the metal to try to get an IT job because, man,
Yeah,
I've learned so like all the theory, it's then how you said like, there'll be a Jimmy Neutron moment eventually where
yeah.
you'll remember what you did before, but
Oh yeah,
IT's it's yeah, you touched into a lot of technology. You see what you are defending. It's very important.
true.
You gotta know what you're defending, and when you're working
That's
with end users, you could understand, okay, these are endpoints, and you understand, troubleshooting, going through testing theories, that's pivotal for any I could easily see that for any role. And even just I think from my regular theory into, home hands-on, this is like a different, an eye opener, if you will, because it's
mm,
very, you see what the infrastructure is and you hear it all the time. And, when I took my SCCP, which I thought was really cool too, at some point I was like, you know what? Even till now, like GRC may be cool, like it's super interesting. You see what the infrastructure is, you see how it is first glance, and it's extremely important to know that eventually
mm.
when you are cybersecurity or even infosec, um, you know what you're protecting. You know the not to say the ins and outs, but you have that context.
You get unlimited free food for life from one restaurant, just one. What are you picking?
Ah, uh, I know my coworkers know that I like McDonald's, but uh, but I would have to say
I know it's tough.
restaurant. I would have to say for sure I enjoyed I don't even know what it's called, but if it was a certain meal or certain dish, I can't really say exact restaurant. I forgot what it was
Yeah,
called, but recently I
yeah.
went to Vegas and it was like these ribs and it
Ooh,
was like
ribs.
Mexican style
Yeah.
ribs. I would yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
Nice.
that's it.
Sounds good. I'm already getting hungry. Adrian, for students in Yuma or anywhere listening right now who you feel like opportunities in tech are out of reach, what would you tell them?
I would say, ultimately whether or not how the job market is or isn't, I think it's very important to know and remind yourself that, as long as you're working on your own, I guess your skill inventory or however you want to put it, working up onto your resume or your skill
Mm,
set or just in general, I want to work on these labs. I want to be more familiar with this, with that. I would say that is the important part, not necessarily what's around and what exactly, because at the end of the day,
mm,
even if you have the job right now or if you have it later, ultimately, either you're super, super prepared, you fill all the boxes, and you get the job and you learn even more. You could go into it, having these boxes filled and,
mm.
ultimately working on yourself because that isn't gonna stop. Even once you get the job, it's not gonna stop. So that's what I was trying to say. Once
Nice.
whether or not you have the role under your belt right now or you don't, you're still gonna have to learn, and it's a part of it.
Adrian, I appreciate you coming on the podcast, man, and sharing your journey. You just started your tech journey, but I think your story, your journey, inspired, like I mentioned, inspired me too when you're showcasing your skill sets and your journey into tech on LinkedIn. And I think that's something that we all need, whether you're professionals or maybe you're a tech teacher, teaching students or homeschooling them on technology or whatever you're doing. And Adrian, if those that are also students right now or even, career changers, that they want to get a hold of you and kind of pick your brain and whatnot, where can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, LinkedIn. I don't even remember my username, but yeah, definitely LinkedIn.
And this is episode number 35 with Adrian Franco, computer specialist at Crane School Districts in Yuma, Arizona. See you guys.